person that will spend about 3 hours trying to figure out how to save 20 minutes. And although it's probably a sickness, you guys will be the beneficiary of that. So hopefully you'll get some tips in here that will save you guys some time as well and help you organize your life, which is part of the reason for this demonstration. So our brief agenda, in short, is going to be getting stuff into Evernote first, organizing it once it's there, and then getting stuff out of Evernote when we need it. So that's the basic methodology that we're going to follow. The basic premise of the methodology that I use when I use Evernote is based on this man's book, David Allen. It's called Getting Things Done. Probably many of you have heard of this book. I don't follow his methodology exactly, but the basic premise of how I use Evernote corresponds with the recommendations that he sets forth in this book. So if you haven't read this book and you'd like to get a broader idea of some of the methodologies I'm going to talk about today, this book would be a good place to turn to after this webinar is complete. So the basic premise of getting things done, according to David Allen here, is that of a centralized inbox where every thought that comes to mind, every to-do item, everything that you need to do or remember goes into a one centralized inbox or repository the moment you think of it. So it doesn't take up brain power and additional memory space in your mind. You're not having to spend time managing that information in your mind. As soon as you have those thoughts, you capture it, it goes into a centralized inbox, and you handle it later. And from there, you divvy up and organize or handle the items once they've made it into that inbox. You sit down once a week or once a day to do those things. And that's kind of the premise of what we're going to go through here in the next few minutes. So I'm going to flip over now to my Windows desktop. And we had one question prior to this webinar, which was where to find Evernote and how to get it. So I'm going to spend about 30 seconds on that just so we all are on the same page. You can find Evernote at evernote.com. And you can see their tagline is remember everything, which basically, like I said, everything that comes to mind, it goes into one central repository and you handle it later. Up here at the top where it says products, you can click that link and Evernote will be the first one on the list. You can see part of the premise of Evernote, as this slide was going to attest, is that of ubiquitous data capture, being able to capture information at the moment you have the thought from anywhere at any time. So their tool is available on just about every platform that's available out there. Androids, iPhones, iPads, Blackberries, Macintosh, Windows, Windows 8, Touch, tablets. It's available anywhere so that you can access your information and get information into Evernote from anywhere. Some of these additional applications are kind of add-on applications to Evernote to help with certain functionality. The only one of these we're going to talk to today, just because we're limited on time, is Sketch. I will give just a couple of tips on using Sketch. So first off, we're going to talk about getting stuff into Evernote. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up, hopefully, again, it's a live demonstration, so hopefully all this works. All right, there's my phone. This is my live phone, so if I get any text messages, you guys are just going to have to ignore them. Or emails. So this is my home screen. You can see what's most important to me as to what makes my home screen, my DirecTV, Amazon shopping, that type of thing. But also you will see a line right across the middle here, which is my Evernote row. And all these items here relate to Evernote in one way, shape, or form. This is the actual Evernote app itself. on the iPhone. And if we click on that, you can see the various, up here at the top are the different ways that you can get information into Evernote. So if I want to take a picture of a document, I would click this. If I wanted to take a picture of a scenery or of somebody or something like that, I would use the camera icon. And then if I just wanted to type a note, I would click this. So we'll click that real quick just to show what that looks like. You come in here, type the note. This is a test note. When you're done, you click the Save button, and it would add the note to your Evernote account. There's also such a thing as notebooks, tags, which we're going to talk about, as well as places. You can see all the places that you've ever created a note. So you can see different locations around the United States where I've created notes. If you scan in or zoom into these different locations, you can see where the notes were created in Valdosta. You can see throughout Valdosta, as I'm driving around Valdosta, I'm constantly taking notes, those types of things. So you can see where those notes were created. You can click on any one of those tags and see the notes that were created at that location, which is very handy. The example that I use there most often is that of attending sporting events. If we go to a football game or something like that, and I know I'm going to be sitting beside somebody for the whole season with season tickets, I'll log that person's name, maybe their children's name, things that I learn about them, and then when I walk into the stadium the next time, I'll just find that tag on the location here in Valdosta. I'll tap that, and it will pull up that person's note automatically, and I can see all that information about them, their name and such. Since I'm so bad with names, I'll be able to remember their name before I walk in, so I can introduce myself and say hi to them and not look like I've forgotten their name. So that's one way that I use this particular feature of Evernote, where the notes were created. Another thing, those that use Evernote that I've personally given some tips to, one of their favorite tips that I've given them is this additional application here called Fast Ever. I think it's $1 or $2, I forget exactly, but it's a couple dollars to use. But it's a really simple application which basically allows you just to tap on that icon and you can immediately begin typing and save, and you'll see it queues it and then adds it to your Evernote account. So as you're if you're in a meeting or something like that and you need to capture a very quick note, you can just tap that, open it up, save, and you get that note into Evernote. So as I mentioned before at the beginning, first we're going to talk about how to get information into Evernote, and then we'll talk about what to do once it's there. So these first few things I'm going to show you are just getting information into Evernote. All right. So another thing that I use Fast Ever for is, since I'm pretty bad with names, if I meet somebody, I will immediately, after I walk away having met them, I will enter information about them. I will enter their name. We'll say that person had red hair, 2 kids, and he's a banker. Just various information like that. And when I click Save, I will eventually file that in my People file, which we'll show here in just a few minutes. And then what I'll do is if I see that person again and I'll say, I know that person from somewhere, I'll go in and I'll search for them and I'll type in the things about them that I know. That person has red hair, I believe he's a banker, and then I'll find that person's information. I'll be able to uncover that person's name before I go up and talk to them. That's one of the ways that I use Evernote to remember people and their names. Another application here is another application by Fast Ever. This is called Fast Ever Snap. And by tapping that icon, you immediately go into a camera. And any picture that you take with this camera, this is you can see my Zacadoo's tea there. This is our conference room where we're currently presenting from. And any picture that I take from here is going to go straight into my Evernote account. So I'll tap that picture, and I click Save down here at the bottom. And that immediately goes into my Fast Ever account, or into my Evernote account rather, and it synchronizes up. So between these two, Very, very fast ways to get information into Evernote. It's basically one tap, you begin typing, or one tap, and you take a picture. And all that information, again, is flowing straight into Evernote, into that centralized inbox that we talked about at the beginning. All right. One other app that I said that I was going to mention is Sketch. And I'll give you an example of how Sketch is useful. Basically what Sketch is it's another way to take pictures, but it allows you to annotate the pictures when you take them. So a quick example here is, I'm going to say take a photo, and here's my business card. I take a picture of my business card, I say use this, and now over here on the right hand side I have different ways that I can annotate that picture. Right now it's set to arrow, and basically what I can do is use the arrow icon like that to point to different things in the picture that I want to draw attention to. I can also put text on here. I'll say I can. There we go. Oh well, live demonstration, we're going to skip that. So, but anyway, you see that you can draw, that you can annotate, you can add text to that to draw out certain things in the picture or things that you particularly want to remember that were available in that picture when you took it. When you click Save, again, that immediately syncs to your Evernote account and you can see it there. Okay? So that's Evernote on the iPhone. Again, all these applications are also available on Android devices and other devices as well. So we talked about Evernote, FastEver, the Snap tool, FastEver Snap for quickly getting information into Evernote, and then in addition, we talked about Sketch as well. So now we're going to talk about a couple of other ways to get information into Evernote. And one of them is the add-in tool that you can install into Chrome. I believe there's one for Internet Explorer as well, but for demonstration purposes, we're going to look at the Chrome tool. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to CNN.com. Hopefully there's no depressing stories on the screen here. Okay, and so up here in the right-hand corner, if you can see, there's an icon that says Clip to Evernote. This is another useful way of capturing information into Evernote. If I click that icon, you can see it automatically highlighted in yellow an area on the screen that I might want to capture. I can use my arrows up and down to adjust what's being selected. I'm using the up and down, left and right arrow keys, and it's automatically sensing the information on the screen and selecting just the information that it thinks I might want to capture. Once I've done that, I say, okay, I want to capture this home screen right here. Then over here on the left-hand side, I can decide where I want to drop that information. And almost always, I'm going to drop that into my centralized inbox so that I can manage it and access it later. Once I've done that, I can add tags if I want to. Usually I don't. I click Save Article, and it's going to automatically capture that, as you can see up there in the right-hand corner of the screen. It's clipping that article and automatically saving it to my Evernote account, where I can access it and look at it later. So that tool is really useful when there are things on the internet or emails or anything like that that you might want to reference or read later. So if somebody sends me an article and says, Ryan, you should really read this, normally what I'll do is I'll open up that article, I'll clip it with that Evernote clipper and save it to my Evernote account. Then if I'm on an airplane or traveling or sitting in a waiting room somewhere, I access my pending reading file and I do all of the reading of things that people have recommended that I read because they've already been clipped and organized in my Evernote account. That's one additional way that I use Evernote for capturing things that I want to read later. Okay, so another way that you can use the tool is it on a web page. If there's a particular phrase that you want to capture, you can see I've captured this text up here in the left-hand corner. I can right-click on that text and say Clip to Evernote, Clip Selection. If I do that, it's going to automatically clip that text, and in addition to that, it's going to clip the reference, the URL, where that text was captured from, and I'll show you what that looks like. But that's a good way, if you're doing research for a paper or something like that, you can go around and clip quotations or things that you want to remember, and Evernote's going to automatically, again, capture the location on the internet where you were doing those captures from. So it allows you to keep information and keep it intact and always be able to reference back to where you got it from. Okay. So another way that's interesting that you can capture information is down here in the bottom right-hand corner where you see the Evernote icon. If we right-click on that icon, we can do Clip Screenshot. And if we do that, we get a selection tool where we can highlight different areas of the screen. Oops. Drag and drop. I want to capture this area. As soon as I let go of the mouse, it automatically clipped that area, and you can see down here in the bottom right-hand corner, it clipped that screenshot and automatically saved it to my Evernote account. So again, you can do that for emails or different things like that that you might want to reference later or keep just for reference purposes, or anything on the web, any different things you can think of. You just simply select that using that tool, and it automatically drops it into your Evernote account. So you can see all the different ways here that we can get information into our Evernote account and just how easy it is. In addition, there's also the Sketch tool that we looked at on the iPhone. Here we can say New Sketch Note. Again, we highlight a piece of text, and it opens that up in Sketch. And remember, what Sketch allows us to do is to annotate that image and draw out certain things. So I can use my arrow icon here. Come on. Well, there it goes. There we go. All right, so I can use my arrow to highlight something that I want to highlight in that image. I can click over here on the text and say, read this. When I do, it annotates that. When I'm finished with that, I click here to save back to Evernote, and it automatically saves that into my Evernote account. And it's going to automatically make that image searchable because it can recognize the text in the image and make it searchable as well. So that's another way to get information quickly into Evernote. Another way that we'll talk about briefly here is you can have synchronized folders. And when you do that, here's a folder. It's called my Evernote import folder. And anything that I put into this folder is going to automatically drop into and be synchronized into Evernote. So an example of what we're going to use that for is I've got a PDF here called The New Rules of PR and Marketing. If I pick that file up and I drop it into my Evernote folder, it's in the Evernote folder for just a second, then it disappears, and you see down here in the bottom right-hand corner it says imported into Evernote. So all I have to do is drop that file into that folder, and Evernote's going to automatically suck it in and delete it. So that PDF is a PDF that I might want to read sometime when I'm on an airplane or something like that. I simply drop it in that folder. It's there in my Evernote account, and then I can organize it and reference it when I want to go back and read it. It's a great way to keep track of and organize things that you might want to reference and read later. Okay. Another thing that you can do, and I'm not going to be able to demonstrate it right now, but every Evernote account has a specific email address. It's usually your username and a 3 or 4 or 5 digit number at Evernote. And any email that you send to that email address will automatically drop into Evernote. So oftentimes what I'll do when I'm sending an email to somebody, if it's something that I want to remember to follow up on with them on or something like that, I will type the email to them, and then I will blind copy this email address here, and it will copy that email to my Evernote account where I will see it in the future and remember to follow up with that person regarding the email that I had sent them. Okay? And in addition, you can also if we pull up my phone again, when you are in the Evernote application, if we are to do a new note, I'm going to click the new note button at the top. Up here at the top, I can record a voice message. This is a sample message. And I click done. It will attach that voice note to the Evernote, and it will be accessible in the future as well. There are also third-party services that will actually transcribe these notes for you. So that's one way that you can do it. In addition, if you're on the right version or the right platform of the iPhone, you also have down here at the bottom the transcription tool that's built into that, where you can just tap that. This is a sample recording. If I click done there, we'll see how accurate it is. See, this is a sample recording. So that's a good way to capture notes in Evernote when you're driving down the road, and because none of us type while we're driving, right? So we want to, if you want to capture a note, you simply tap that. It'll transcribe the note for you. When you're done, you click close. It saves the note, and you can get it into that way. So you can either do that, or you can just save the voice note to Evernote and have a third-party service possibly transcribe it for you. That's another option. All right, so that's basically all we're going to talk about when it comes to getting information into Evernote. So we talked about using the Evernote app, the Fast Ever Snapshot, and Sketch from the phone to get those information into Evernote. We talked about using the web clipper to clip information, screenshots for capturing pictures, Sketch for annotating pictures that we've taken, the import folder, which is what we're looking at here, email to Evernote so we can blind copy or send or forward emails to our special Evernote email address, and they'll get into Evernote that way. And then in addition, we can take voice notes and transcribe things and stuff like that. There are a few other ways that we probably don't have time to get into, but you can see the myriad of ways that you can use to get information into Evernote from basically anywhere at any time. It's always accessible to you from whatever application you're working in. Now we're going to actually look into Evernote itself and how to go about organizing the information once it gets into Evernote. So you can see here, this is not my real Evernote account. This is just some sample stuff I put into here for the sake of demonstration. So the first thing that I'll point out here is that everything that we've just done over the past 10 minutes or so, all that information is now residing in our centralized inbox, as we can see here. So again, throughout the day, throughout the week, the weekend, whatever, I'm always capturing thoughts, information and such, and it's all flowing into my centralized inbox. And once it gets there, then we go about organizing it. So usually about once a day, I'll sit down and organize the information that has made it into Evernote. And I'll show you the methodology that I use for doing that. So one common mistake that I see people make, and I won't call, it's not necessarily a mistake, I guess each person has their own preferences. One of the recommendations that I usually make to folks is to limit the number of notebooks that you use in your Evernote account. Normally people that are new to Evernote end up with a separate notebook for all types of different things. Every project they're working on, every client they're dealing with, every aspect of life, home, work, they end up with all these separate notebooks. And I have found that that can be too difficult to maintain. And so basically what I've done is this is the only folders that I have. Timesheets here is something that's probably unique to people that bill by the hour, those types of things, consultants. So that may not be something that you need, but these are the folders that I've limited myself to. And so our inbox is, again, that centralized inbox where everything goes. The other purpose of the inbox is that the inbox is for things that have not been dealt with yet. So it's things that you still have to spend some time on to do. So either to-do items you haven't completed yet, or follow-up items where you haven't spoken to the person yet. It's things that haven't been resolved. The journal is for anything that you want to see again later. So it could be anything from pictures of your children, quotes that you particularly liked, reading material that you might want to read again in the future, anything at all that you might want to see again, but you've already handled it for now. You don't need to deal with it anymore right now, but you do want to see it again. I put that in the journal. The people file, excuse me, the people file is for when you saw earlier where I met somebody new and I put in the characteristics of that person, red hair, 2 children, banker. That's where that information goes into the people file. So if I run into somebody on the street and I see them, I can quickly go to the people file, type in red hair, and it's going to show me all the people that had red hair so that I can easily find and remember what that person's name was. I have a password file where I keep all the passwords. One of the recommendations I make to folks is to not reuse the same password over and over again. That's a best practice for security purposes. Ideally, you want to have a separate password for every website that you access or for every application you use. Having a password notebook is an easy way to keep track of those passwords. I have one for receipts. So any purchase I make on the internet or something like that goes into that receipts folder. I use that web clipper that we looked at to capture the page, that internet page. When I make a purchase online, I click save, and that's what saves to the Evernote account into that receipts folder. And then history is really the counterpart to journal. So journal are things that you've already handled that you do want to see again. And then history, the way I use it, would be anything that you've already handled that you do not particularly want to see again. That would go to the history file. At least that's how I use it. And then templates are Evernote notes that give you a basic starting point for things you might want to do in the future. So example here is I've got my packing list. This is all the stuff as where I need to get it from. So in the bathroom, I need to make sure you grab deodorant, toothpaste, floss, that type of thing. Paperwork, you want to make sure you get your boarding pass, itinerary, hotel confirmation numbers, all of these things. I save that in my template folder. So anytime I get ready to pack, all I do is I right-click on that packing list. I say copy to inbox. And when I do that, I get a fresh copy of that packing list in my inbox folder, as you can see here. I opened up, and that's what I use as my checklist when I'm packing to go on a trip. And as I mark those things off in that file, I'm not modifying the original template, so I can reuse that template over and over again. And if I see in the future, by now that packing list is pretty detailed, but in the future, you could but if you forget about things in the future on a packing list or on a trip, you can simply go into that template folder and add to your template list, and basically you'll never forget it again. So that's how I use that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to actually go, now that we have a basic understanding of the folders, at least as my best practices that I usually recommend to folks. Now we're going to talk about how to actually go about organizing things. And so the way it works, I'm going to delete this guy here. The way it works is I rely heavily on saved searches. Okay, and basically what a saved search is, you have a search bar up here at the top, and once you type in that search syntax, you can save that search and reuse it over and over again. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you just some examples. On the left-hand side here, we've got tags, and basically what happens is you can tag any note in your Evernote account with certain tags here. So for instance, this new rules of PR and marketing, if I wanted to tag that, I would come down here to where I would add a tag to that note. I click there to add a tag, and I have a tag called reading material. So I would type in reading material. It would tag that with reading material. I also have a tag called marketing ideas. So I would type in marketing. It automatically completes marketing ideas, and now I've tagged that PDF that I want to read in the future with marketing ideas and reading materials. So in the future, if I filter my Evernote list for just marketing ideas, that's going to show up. If I'm sitting on a plane and I'm looking for something to read, I can filter it by clicking over here on my reading materials tab, and it's going to filter that list for just the things that are in my reading list. Okay? So that's how tags work. Now the way I use tags, or the way I organize, is by creating saved searches. So the key to my organization method is the uncategorized saved search. And if I click that, you can see up here at the top what that syntax looks like. Basically, it is, if you want to duplicate the uncategorized search, it would be something like notebook : inbox, so that we get only the notes that are in our inbox, not the ones that are in the history file or journal file, because we don't want to see those. Just the ones that are in the inbox, and we're going to say minus tag equals star, which means only show me the notes that have not been tagged with anything yet that are also in the inbox. And you would type that right up here in this search folder, and then you would click this button over here on the right to save it, and you would end up with a saved search called uncategorized. Okay? So when you click that, what you get are all the notes in your inbox, things that have not been handled yet, that have not been categorized. So you can see the notes here that we've just created. And what's interesting about this is that that saved search automatically updates as we go through and we tag these various items. So this particular article here that I captured earlier in the demonstration, I'm currently filtered using the uncategorized saved search, and you will see that when I add a tag to this, I'm going to tag it with reading material. As soon as I do that, it disappears. And it disappears from the list. I'll tag this one too. We had two of them created. I'll tag this with reading material, and you can see as soon as I do that, it disappears. So you can quickly go down through all of the uncategorized things in your list, and according to that book, Getting Things Done by David Allen, you have a centralized inbox, and when you sit down once a day or once a week to go through that inbox, anything that can be handled now, you go ahead and get it out of the way. So if it's a phone call you need to make, you go ahead and make that phone call. If you need to book reservations for a plane ticket or something like that, you go ahead and do those things right there on the spot if they can be done in just a few minutes. When you've done that, the way I handle it is once I've got it completed, I come over here on the right-hand side to where my notebooks are, and I move that to my history file. So it's something that I don't necessarily want to see again, that I've already handled, and it goes into the history file just so if I need to reference it back to it, I can, but I don't necessarily ever want to see it again. So I've got my list filtered again for the uncategorized items. Here's my wife's vehicle had a problem starting the other day. I want to make sure that I take that to the shop. So I'm going to tag this here with, there's also a keystroke here that you can click to pull up all of your tags. So I'm going to tag that with Robin. I'm going to tag that with errands, and I'm going to tag it with home, things that I might need to do if I'm at home. Hit my enter key. Oops. I click OK. It automatically tags that note with all three of those tags, saves it, and then takes it away from the screen now because it's already been tagged. Okay. So basically, you can go down through your inbox, handle the things that need to be handled, and then categorize the things that you want to handle in the future. So basically, what I would do as well, here are things, call Bobby regarding process improvement. Let's see, I thought I had. Here's one, discuss a new product line with Stuart. So if I click over here and I click my tag, I'm going to tag this with Stuart, and it takes it out of the list because I'm going to have that conversation with Stuart sometime in the future. I'm not going to do that right now. Once you get all these things categorized, they become kind of your to-do list categorized by individual. If I come over here to my saved searches now, say I'm about to walk into Stuart's office, I would probably do this from my phone, or if I sit down and I'm at lunch with Stuart, I would click my saved search for Stuart, and it's going to show me only the items that are in my inbox, meaning they haven't been handled yet, that are also tagged with Stuart. And now I've got a list of all the discussion things I need to sit down and talk with about with Stuart. And I do that with every individual in our organization, as well as relatives as well. So if I would tag something with my parents' name, if it was something I need to talk to them about or something like that, and I create these lists. So the next time I have a meeting with Ann Shinton, who opened this call, I would click my Ann Shinton file here and would have all of the things categorized that I need to talk with Ann about. So the next time I see her, I have everything that I've ever thought about over the last month or so since the last time we spoke, things I wanted to remember to talk to her about. So that's how we use that. Another thing that I'll mention to you, this is kind of getting into 301 or 401 level tips, but I'll mention it to you just for those that might want to pursue it. The way that I actually go about doing this process here, when I go down through this inbox, is I have shortcut keys. I have shortcut keys developed, and there's a couple of applications that you can use to do this. And so my left hand is on, it holds down these buttons over here, and then my right hand is on these 4 buttons over here on the right. And J is for journal. If I click J, it automatically files that note to the journal. If I click K, it keeps that note and files it into the history file. If I hit L, it's going to delete the note. If I hit the semicolon key, it's going to move down to the next note. And so if we are in our Evernote here, you would simply JKL, JK, 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 JKL, and you would be able to very, very quickly go right down through that list without ever having to touch your mouse, and you can file those things into the different categories. You can also hit the Control Option and the T button to pull up the tags and tag them that way. So basically, you can work your way down an uncategorized list, like what you see on the screen here, things that haven't been tagged, and file them and tag them without ever having to touch your keyboard, your mouse, which makes that process very, very fast. 2 applications you can use to do that if that's something you might be interested in exploring. In Windows, there's an application called Win Automation, and on the Mac, there's one called Keyboard Maestro. Keyboard Maestro is fairly inexpensive. It's $30, I think, something like that. Win Automation is a little more expensive. There are other tools out there as well. There's one called Auto Hotkey, but it's a little more. You have to learn syntax for because you have to learn how to basically program to make that happen. Whereas Win Automation is much more drag and drop way of handling it. And you can assign those keystrokes to do those different things, and you can accomplish this right here, which will allow you to go down through your inbox and categorize those things very, very quickly. All right. So we talked about using templates, tagging, and another aspect of tagging is that I always tag a note with at least 2 pieces of information. Who it is that the note is in reference to, whether it's somebody I need to talk to or it's a company or something like that. It's always who and where. So normally I have 3 or 4 different locations for where. If you look over here on the left-hand side, I have a home, an errands, and I actually have a shopping as well. And then somewhere in there I have office. There's office. So if I come into the morning and I want to see all the things I need to do at the office, I can simply click the office tag, and there's nothing in that list right now, and it would list all the things I need to do while I'm at the office. If it's the weekend and I need to look at my honey-do list or something like that, you can see I click home, and there it is, get Robin's vehicle checked, because I had that tagged as home earlier in this demonstration. Normally, if I were at home on a Saturday and I needed to see all the things I need to do that day, I would click that home to filter it by home, and I'd probably have a list of about 75 things there, most likely. If I'm shopping, if I'm going to a department store or something like that, or the grocery store, I would click my shopping list over here on the left, and it would show all the things I need to remember to buy while I'm shopping. So if I'm sitting at dinner and I put hot sauce on something and I run out of hot sauce, I would immediately use my phone to type in hot sauce into using that Fast Ever app. That would come into this centralized inbox here. Here's actually one for ant killer, and I would type in shopping into that note. When I do that, it's no longer going to appear in my uncategorized list, so I won't see it in the uncategorized list. But the next time I go shopping and I click my shopping thing, there's going to be my shopping list. So that's one of the ways I go about handling that. In addition, we talked briefly about the syntax for doing the searches. I mentioned using this syntax up here in the search button option for looking at all the notes that have not been categorized yet, using notebook, :inbox, -tag. If you want to reference those tags and where the syntax that you can use, if you go to Evernote and you search for advanced search operators, it will pull up this screen here, and it gives you all the syntax. So you can see here's the one for notebook, : and it tells you how to use that. There's the tag and the -tag to filter things by tag. You can also filter things by dates. There's lots of different ways that you can do that. But those saved searches using these search syntaxes here can be very, very powerful the more you use Evernote. All right. So the other thing to keep in mind, that all this information that we're piling into our inbox, and then we're once a day or once a week we go through here, we click our uncategorized save search, which actually I have a shortcut up here at the top if you can see that. I click my uncategorized. There's all the items that haven't been categorized yet. Once we've done that, and we've got everything categorized into the buckets we need, and then if we're going to, anytime we sit down to do something, go anywhere or do anything like that, it's one click away and we can see all the information that we needed to see. All right, so we got saved searches, we covered that. I also have a saved search up here on my shortcut bar for recently updated, so I can see all of the items that I've recently modified. That's often helpful when you're want to look back at the things that you've done in a day. So at the end of the day, if I click my updated, I can almost have a detailed list of everything that I did that day just by looking at the notes that I had updated within that day, if you use Evernote as your working file as you progress through the day. Another interesting thing about Evernote is that with the images, it does what's called optical character recognition, which allows you, it automatically recognizes the text that exists in photographs and allows you to search on that text. If I can get back here to our screen. What I'm going to do here is go to our Evernote import, and I'm going to pretend that I took a picture of my business card again. I'm going to drag that into import, my Evernote import. It's going to exist there for 1 second. It disappears. Evernote has imported it. It actually goes up to the Evernote server in the sky when we synchronize it. Once it exists up there to Evernote in the cloud, the Evernote service is going to go through a process called OCR, Optical Character Recognition. It's going to find the text that exists in that picture of that business card. And if all goes well, it hasn't finished yet. It takes it a minute to do that recognition. But once it's finished, when I type Ryan, it will automatically find that business card. So oftentimes in that people file over here in the notebook that I mentioned, where I keep all the information about different people, I would also drop pictures of their business cards in there as well. So if I search for their name, it's going to show me the information that was captured off of that business card. It's not there yet. We'll check back on that in just a second. All right, so I think that's pretty much it. I wanted to make sure that we left plenty of time for questions. And so we've got about I guess about 10 minutes left for questions. And so at this time, we'll open it up for questions. We'll reference back here to that, that picture of the business card here in just a second to see if that is working. So at this time, does anybody have any questions?
I have gotten a couple of questions during the call. One person asked how do you actually go about creating that import folder? Could you go over that in a little bit more detail?
Yes. So the import folder, you would actually come up here to the Tools menu, scroll down to Import Folder, and you would click Add, and then you would navigate to whatever folder on your computer. Oops, not the A drive. You would navigate to whatever folder on your computer that you wanted to use for your Evernote import folder. Once you get it selected, you click OK. Then you have a few options. You have an option here to specify whether or not you want to import things that exist in subfolders underneath that folder. Most of the time there I would say yes. You can also say where do you want to drop that information. Do you want to drop it into the inbox? If you follow that getting things done methodology of David Allen, everything goes into the inbox and then it's categorized out from there. So most of the time you're going to want to put that in inbox. And then you have the option here whether or not you want to keep the file that you put in that folder, you want to stay there once it's been imported, or if you want to go ahead and delete it once it's been successfully imported into Evernote. Most of the time I set it to delete so that I know that it's been imported and that folder doesn't get cluttered with lots of things that I don't need anymore. So I usually just tell it to delete. So you can see here in this case, now I have two folders set up as my Evernote import folder, and I can drop things in either one of those and they'll be handled the same way. So that's how you go about adding an import folder.
Okay, and we also had another question about how can you go about sharing Evernote between your colleagues, especially with using your iPhone or iPad.
Right. So there is actually an Evernote setup for businesses. Let's see if I can find the where that's actually at. On their website, though, there is a business version of Evernote that you can use to share. There it is for businesses, which allows you to share folders between just people within your business that you want to give access to those folders, so that you can use it as a kind of a centralized repository that everyone in the organization can use simultaneously. In addition, depending on the nature of the information that you are sharing, you can right-click on a folder and click Share Notebook, and that would make that notebook actually publicly facing, where you could share information with the general public, because it makes it basically accessible on the internet with no password. So that's another option for sharing the information that exists in a notebook as well. And then lastly, I believe, it's not something I use a whole lot, but you can also share an individual file note, I believe. Yeah, you can right-click on the note, post it to Twitter, but you can also copy the note URL to a clipboard and do it that way, and that will allow that individual note to be shared via URL that people can access on the internet as well. So there's lots of different sharing options depending on the nature of the situation at hand. Okay.
Okay. I've gotten a couple of more. When you pull a document into the Evernote import folder, is it the actual document or just a copy of the document?
It is the actual document. So you can see here, this is the actual, that PDF of that, the new rules of marketing and PR. If I can find that scroll button. This is the actual PDF of that document, and you can scroll through it using these navigation buttons up here at the top for the PDF. It works that way for PDFs. For some files that you would import, it would basically just attach them like it would an email attachment, and from there you can launch it. If it's a picture or a PDF or something like that, it'll actually load it in a manner like this that you can see visually in the note So rather than just an attachment in the note, it actually shows the item itself.
Okay, and somebody asked, what is Everclip?
Everclip. I believe it's the same thing we've already looked at. Yeah. Everclip is, I believe, this add-in that you can use for Google up here where we right-click the web clipper. I believe that is what it's either that. It's not. If there is a tool called Everclip, it's not. I don't believe it's made by Evernote, but there's many third-party apps. Okay, and yeah, Anne's showing me the there's an Everclip application that exists on the iPhone. I actually might have it on my iPhone, but it's not one that I use very often.
And it's also a Chrome add-in, so I think that it probably does the same thing that the Evernote web clipper does for Google Chrome. Yeah. But I guess the advantage there is that you can use it on your iPhone and iPad.
Actually, I do. I'm sorry. What that actually does, now that I recall, is it allows you to surf the internet within that application, and then any page that you come across when you're within Everclip, you can click a button and save that page to your Evernote account. So you would actually surf the internet, I believe, within that application, and then you click a button to save the information to your Evernote account. Basically the same thing we looked at when we did this this web clipper up here, but it works on the iPhone. It works a little differently because of the iPhone security that exists, but basically it does the same thing. Okay.
All right. I don't think we have any other questions.
Okay.
But I will be sending out the recording of this presentation sometime over the next couple of days. And if you have any other questions that didn't get answered on the call, Ryan, can you throw up your contact information? Do you have it up? Okay. When I send the recording, I'll have my contact information. So if you have any other questions, you can reach out to me, and I will be sure to get your questions to Ryan if I cannot answer them myself. But otherwise, thank you for joining us today. I hope you found this session to be useful and informational, and we will be in touch with you soon. Thank you.